What up, good people? It appears that a lot of y'all were requesting a tutorial after you saw a picture of this fun little thing. How I got the paint splatters and everything like that. Well, it just so happens that I'm doing a set based off of this particular design, so I figured that I would show you what exactly I did. So, to get started, we're going to need your supplies, which is have everything set up. First of all, for this particular set, I'm using pure white and jet black, but you can use any color once you decide what kind of design you're doing. So, supply wise, of course, you're going to need your polish. This particular technique that I'm using today will require pigments, pure pigments. So I have my neon pigments here, and hopefully, hint, iGel will get some of their own on their website, so I can tell you go to iGel and get them, but unfortunately that's not the case as of right now. I personally like using eyeshadow applicators. Mine are dual ended, so it's basically one color per each side. And then, but you can use a Q-tip. My recommendation would be these kind where it's flat on one side and then pointed on the other, so you can get it in the crooks and crevices if you need to clean up. But also, you're going to need something for the texture. I use these, which pretty much comes in a little pad, and I just simply rip them up and use them as needed. They come, it's like 4 in a package, and I've had this package, I want to say, for at least for the last year, because you tear them up based on the size of the nail that you're working with. I'm working with larges today. I don't even really technically need a size this big, so I'm going to rip some of that off and save it for later. Get you a good pair of tweezers. After you put it into a little ball like this, get you a pair of tweezers. Okay. Put it together. Get you a nice little rubber band. And, because I'm lazy, and I'm not sitting there trying to like have a Herculean amount of strength in my hand, I just go ahead and wrap it together. So now it automatically stays. Now, depending on whether you use polish, because the same technique can be used with polish instead of pure pigments, you'll have multiple of these set up. How many you have set up also will be dependent on how many colors you have in your design. So since I'm using white to lay down the actual splatter, I only need one. Now, speaking of the white, you'll also need painting gel. This one is a little bit thicker in consistency than the iGel ones, and it works a bit better for this technique because of the fact that you are going to be dabbing it on. You won't have as many air bubbles. iGel, I did try it with the iGel, and the iGel one happened to give me a bit too many air bubbles, and I didn't want to have to fight with the air bubbles in order to pull the design off. If you get air bubbles, it's not like a big deal. It's not a deal breaker. It's not going to mess up your design too much, but you don't really want to fight with them either. So in addition to the white painting gel, you're also going to need the black painting gel. Now you can use the iGel paint gel because for that part, because you're particularly doing it for line work. You can also use the iGel white paint gel for that because of course you're doing line work with this in white as well. And don't forget, the funnest part of all is your iGel stickers. For this particular set, we're going to be using the Adidas brand or inspired by stickers to give us our designs. Other than that, let's get started. All right, so now I did skip some steps on camera anyways. So what I did is I took our pure white and put 2 coats on, and then put on the iGelbeauty No Cleanse top coat. You can use the one where you have the inhibitor layer inhibitor. Yes, use the English that God gave me, excuse me. But this just makes it for a faster move through, because then now you're pretty much set up. Now, the reason why you want to put glossy top coat on first is so that when you are working with the pigments, if any happens to go somewhere else other than where you intended the design to go, you can easily dust it off or clean it off, and you won't have to worry about it being stuck to your polish, because we all know even if you use alcohol to clean the polish off, there are points where it still can get stuck, especially with a finer pigment like this. As you can see, the pigment is really, really fine. Let's see if my camera will focus, but it won't. So you get the idea. Oh, well, you know, yeah, you get the idea. So we want to make sure to make things as easy as possible. Now, as I stated before, you take your little dipper here, and you grab your painting gel. You're going to dab it in there, and yes, with these they do happen to get strings, so you want to keep that in mind as you do your design. But you don't want to completely submerge it, and even if you do and you happen to get too much, that's what napkins are for. And you can dab some on your napkin to kind of dissipate the design. See, so now it's not that much on there, and what you'll do is you'll just randomly, it's okay if it strings out, whatever, you're just randomly dab and tap. It doesn't matter what it looks like, unless you want it to be specifically in a certain pattern. It doesn't technically matter how you put it on. Now, because you dabbed off the excess, you have a little extra sitting off to the side that you can go and re-up if you need to. But other than that, pretty much. Now, if you want to add some more or you want to adjust, you can do that while it's wet. My suggestion, though, is if you choose to use another painting gel that happens to be a bit runnier or more liquefied, so to speak, you'll want to definitely keep that in mind for the way it moves and the way it shifts. Yes, painting gels can be runny. Not necessarily, say, like blending gels or even the base coat gels or top coats, but you'll definitely maybe want to flash cure a little bit. Maybe no more than 5 seconds if your painting gel happens to be runny. Not saying that you have to. It also depends on how fast you work, but beginners, I would definitely recommend maybe hitting it for 5 seconds or so under your UV light, even in the lamp, to kind of set the design before you go in and do a full 30 to 60 second cure. So as you can see, I'm pretty much just going through and checking the design, seeing where it's sitting at, and you can kind of see where it's sitting at based off my camera. I don't know if you can see it really, really well, but now, as I was saying about air bubbles, when they dry, they will have a pit to them. They won't be bubbled up. They'll have a pit to them. So if you want to kind of get rid of those, you can go back over and pop them if you mind. If not, what'll happen is simply the color will just kind of sit in the pocket. It's not a super big deal. It's not a super big deal breaker unless you're like a super perfectionist or something like that. I'm not, but I know how to finesse and make something look good. So I'm gonna come back once I finish all of these, because I have both white and black, which I'll come back and show you the design on the black once everything is dry, and then we'll move on to applying our pigments. As promised, I am back. Now I have both my black and my white set done. Black done the same way, full black, 2 coats, and then the no cleanse top coat. Now that I have my splatters in place, they are dry. See, dry. Yep. Now I'm going to take my pigments and just simply apply them. Now, since we are working with rainbow colors, I have them set up in the color of a rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple for violet. Now, again, you can set them up however many you want. I would recommend setting them up based off of how you're going to use them. So when you apply the pigments, you simply take a little bit. For me, I'm going to take a little bit, put it on my applicator sponge, see? Just a little bit. And then I'm going to go in and rub randomly. Remember how I advised you to put the no cleanse top coat on, and this is simply the reason why. Because once you get to putting it on, it can get a little messy, just a bit, just slightly messy, and you want to make sure that you have something that will protect the rest of the nail from the design, because what'll happen, simply put, is that it'll ruin it if you don't, especially when you're working with lighter colors. Black, you may be able to finesse a fix or a workaround, but you definitely want to make sure that you put it down and make sure that it works correctly. Now, as you are placing colors, I recommend, if you don't know color theory, that you study up on it, or at least get the color wheel. It'll show you all of how colors work, from primary to secondary, tertiary colors, because if you don't put these down correctly and you put the wrong colors beside a color, you'll end up getting like a really muddy brown or some other unattractive color. So since I put down red, right, I can put orange near the red, or I can put it somewhere else. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly near it, but it can be close to it. The reason being is because of the simple fact, like I said, you don't want to muddy your colors. Because if you muddy your colors, then you really gonna have a problem. You're gonna have little ugly spots. Trust me, I can tell you, because it's from experience. Didn't necessarily like it. So again, with the color theory, and as you can see, I flipped over the one half. Now I'm working on the second half of my little sponge rubbers, whatever you want to call it. So since these three colors, red, orange, and yellow, go together, I can put them beside each other and they won't turn ugly. And I can see that I missed orange in here somewhere. But because red and yellow make orange, I can put red and yellow beside each other, even if I add the orange later. And it comes out about the same color, but still sometimes it'll be a little lighter, sometimes it'll be a little darker. But if I would have put, say, like red and green together, even though they complement each other, yes, they are complementary colors, they don't mix well. You would have ended up with like a odd brown, and we definitely don't want that. Now, so yeah, and it's okay if you don't like remember to put all the colors together at the same time. Like how I meant for these two, I missed putting on the orange, but since I have a little extra on my little scrubber, I can just go in and tap that in real quick. Now notice that I put yellow and orange together, but nothing happened. Like it didn't turn into a little ugly ghastly color. And that's because yellow is a component of orange, so it works with itself. So now that you see the general idea, what I'm going to do is cut the camera and we'll come back and work some things out, okay? Yes, I know I ran over the yellow, but it's okay. So I'll come back and show you the finished products once I get done putting it on all over the black and the white, and we'll move on from there. We're back. Now, once we have all of our colors placed, it's time to clean up. Now, the black shows a little bit better than the white does, so get yourself some fresh gloves, finger condoms. If you take a little Q-tip, you can use a Q-tip like I showed you earlier. Yeah, it is called a Q-tip. I'm sorry, it's still early. I'm sleepy. Anyways, Generally, what you can do is just lightly dust. You don't want to press super hard because of the simple fact, if you press too hard, you'll rub the colors together. So you can just lightly dust it off like this to where your black looks shiny again. And then you'll be ready for the next part. Now, some of the steps that I take may be a little bit too much for a regular client service, but since I'm working on press-ons, I don't really have to worry about hot spots developing from too much product or anything. This step is optional. I do it just because it makes it simpler for me to work through on the canvas, but you can do it however you see fit. You can add steps, you can take steps away. Now, what you're going to do is going to go back in with your top coat and you're going to float it across. You're not dragging, you're floating, because if you drag, you have a tendency to possibly run the colors together. So you're just floating over it real quick to seal the colors, and before seal the colors. See how it's going on real smooth, but you don't see a lot of streaks in the colors. Well, you would see it if I put it in the camera range, right? But you know, we gonna work it out. We all learning together. So again, floating it, and there's not much product on here, and if you feel like you got too much product on here, because you still want to keep the layers relatively thin, because you still have at least one more layer of top coat in addition to the layers you're going to put on with your painting gel. So, and it takes practice to figure out how to get the float, especially if you're not 100% used to it. And if you need to, you can rub your brush off. If you see some of the particles have gotten on your brush, rub it off, because of course you don't want to contaminate your top coat. And just simply go through and work top to bottom, bottom to top. It depends on which direction you like to go in. And then once you have that done, you pop it in for a full 60 seconds. Just take a full 60 seconds to cure. Now, I have the rest of them done. That was just the last one, so I could show you guys before it's time to start your design portion. Now, designing freehand, whether you got stickers, whatever, this is a combination of both for me. And I use a combination of the really long painting brush and one that's medium short. Well, to me it's medium short, and it was freshly cleaned, so that's why it's kind of wonky right now. But you know, once we get it popping, we get it popping. Now, since I am using the white nails as an example, I am going to start out with the black painting gel. Now, black painting gel, again, depends on how comfortable you are. You can dip right directly in, or you can set some off to the side in a little plastic container. Personally, there's a lot of movement with this, so just simply taking your time. Don't try to rush through it, so you can get your lines the way you want them to be. And I'm naturally heavy-handed, so my line work has a tendency to be kind of heavy compared to some people. I'm working on it though, but generally it's kind of heavy. So, you know, we gonna make it work. So what I'm gonna do is, and the good thing about when you have a longer brush like this, you can check your angles. So if you want an angle, you can kind of see where it'll end up at. So if you want to widen it, you can. Or if you're going straight like this, you can watch the angle of your brush. But since I'm actually doing a diagonal pattern, I'm going like this. Now, generally, when you want to have movement to it, you don't want to be static. So even if you're working on a real finger or a press on, now you notice that I'm still slightly moving this. Even if I'm moving my brush, it may not be as much as most people, but I'm moving the nail and the brush. That way, it kind of helps keep your lines straight to the point of what you're doing. because if you stay still and try to pull, you can move your angles, especially if you're anchoring your finger. We have a tendency to move. It'll go kind of wonky. So, we definitely try to do something different. But other than that, that's generally how I start my line work. Now, if I'm doing something that's running parallel, I may mark where I want to start at, which would be right here, and then right here. So that's where I want to start my other lines, and go with them, trying to keep my spacing as even as possible. Yes, and I'm curving with the nail, so even if it's straight on it, you see it's curved, but depending on, it'll look like it's straight. I curve sometimes I don't. It just depends. And because I do a lot of freehand designing, nothing is ever going to look the exact same. No matter how much I try, it's not going to look the exact same. So that's why I always tell people, if I do freehand for you, it's not going to be exactly based off of the original design that you chose. It'll be very similar, but it won't be the exact same. And sometimes you have to set that expectation, because we all know some people they see something and they want literally the exact same copy. And you may or may not be able to produce that, but you can always produce a reasonable facsimile. Now, for lines straight across, again, this is just personally how I do stuff. I start in the middle. You want to make sure that your paint and gel's not like clumped up on this end, but I start in the middle, and again, line the brush up with the direction I'm going, and go like this. Now, of course, I know sometimes the way I do it, because I'm a press-on artist, is not feasible to do when you have a client, because clearly you can't have somebody's fingers doing a complete 360 the wrong direction, because they're only made to move a certain direction. But once you get the technique down and what works for you, of course, you can do it however you want to. And if you happen to get, like, you see that little, no, of course you don't see it because I'm smart. If you happen to get like a little oops on the side, it's okay, because you can either go in with a brush, or you can go in with another Q-tip and just simply wipe it off, which is another reason why I like the pointed Q-tips. Now, be careful, because they got the little hairs and stuff, so you don't want to ruin the rest of the design and knock it off. So this is pretty much how you start. Remember, once you clean off from the dust that the pigments that you're using, you're going to want to float a no cleanse shiny top coat. Well, technically you can do matte or shiny. I just feel like shiny is a bit thinner for setting this part up, and then you can go back in on top with the matte, which will show when we come back. So yeah, I'm gonna cut the camera. Next time you see me, all line work will be done, and then we'll move on. Actually, yeah, all line work will be done, and we'll move on to placing our final stickers before we move to the final top coat. So see you soon. Now we're back with pretty much the last few sets of stickers that we're going to put on here. So I have my iGel stickers and a pair of needle nose tweezers, because I found that the needle nose is able to get them off a little bit better, because the lip of the sticker, where the actual sticker is not, but it's like that little edge, is a little difficult, which iGel, or brand ambassadors or people that got some juice to make them listen, you might want to talk to them about that, because sometimes you can ruin a sticker. I mean, they're not super thick like regular stickers, which not expected to be, because you need to paint over them, but see how easily this is bending a little bit. So I just lost a tip of one of my stickers, but it's not enough to completely ruin, so we should be able to salvage it. And you want to press and rub. Yeah, I'm using my bare fingers, so y'all forgive me. But Just place them on. Oh, yep, it wanted to come with me. And work it out that way. Now, sometimes they will fold over, but as you place them, it'll give you the opportunity to kind of pull that back out. So, there we go. Last one. And there we go. There we go. Okay. So last one. And then fun part. Well, last part. Matte top coat. Full disclosure, today, as I'm filming this, is the first time that I've actually used iGel matte or any top coat from iGel. And I have to say that I'm actually impressed with how it covers and how smoothly it goes on, because if you've used other companies or other brands, you know sometimes they have a tendency not to be the smoothest application, whether it's, you know, you got a alcohol rub or whatever after it cures. This one, I mean, it's fairly smooth. It threw me off for a bit because it is kind of like pre-matte out the bottle. But so I thought, of course, you know, when you put it on, it's probably going to be a little cloudy. Surprisingly, it is not. And I'll show y'all in a moment. For those who don't have it, I will show y'all in a moment how it cures. Let me run through and put my top coat on the rest of these and throw these in my good lamp. And I'll show you. It actually, surprisingly, when I pulled it out, it is clear, because we all probably have used other brands and other types of mattes, and you know, sometimes if you mistakenly put your matte too thick, it'll come out super cloudy. And even sometimes when you don't, if you use a thin layer, it'll still come out kind of like that clouded over look. This actually didn't do that, and I was thoroughly surprised. I was actually pretty impressed. So iGel Yo Good Matte top coat might be my go-to top coat for as long as y'all make it. With that being said, though, I got some beef. Considering the fact that iGel has refills of the No Cleanse top coat and the regular traditional top coat with the inhibitor layer to it, you would expect them to have a refill for the matte. They don't. Although I could have sworn one point in time they might have. Of course, I could have been seeing stuff because at the time I was not really checking for the matte top coat. But now that I have, and we're going to kind of let this level out and slide and shift and shimmy and shuck and jive where it needs to go for a second, since I was tipping like a tilt-a-whirl. And then we're going to throw this in the good UV lamp for 2 cycles at 60 seconds. But here is the finished, one of the finished. And as you can see, it's not cloudy. Let me see if I can get it to focus. Yeah, it's not cloudy at all. And I was really surprised by that. And I actually love the fact that it's not cloudy. Now, with that being said and our little show and tell being over, I'm going to go ahead, cut the video, cut the camera as they say, clean these up, crisp up these good edges, get rid of the little knots and whatnot, work on the sides to kind of clean them up and make them look crisp and special and sparkly and things, and get ready to package this here good set up. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, leave a message, and I'll try to explain a little bit better. But other than that, once you get the technique down, there is no stopping where you can go with this or how you can apply it. As I stated at the beginning of this, you can do this technique with polish. You can technically even do it with inks, But if you do it with inks, I would recommend mixing your painting gel with the matte top coat so that when you cure it, it'll already be matte. So you can just work the inks after that. There is no special. You don't have to go in and repaint, double paint, or anything like that. Everything will be set up and ready. Other than that, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Hopefully I did it justice, and we'll see you again soon.